We'll start the convened meeting at 6:02. We have called the meeting to order, and please be aware that the meeting will be recorded if you turn your microphone on, and any failure of the audio system does not jeopardize any of the decisions of council. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, is there any council not have been registered? Looks like we're good there. Confirmation of the agenda has been circulated. Any errors or additions? Failing which, the chair will entertain a motion to accept it. Thanks, Councilman Collin. Second for that, please. Councilman Gill. All in favor? Carried. Delegations. We're pleased to have Jennifer visit with us. How are you, Jennifer? Thanks for joining Southwest Middlesex. Our staff will make sure you're wired there and turned on. And thank you very much for providing us the opportunity to go over these statements with you briefly. And I'll let you begin.
Happy to be here this evening, thank you. So there was a copy of the draft financial statements in your packages, so I'm going to walk through those statements this evening. After I go through the statements, I will have a few general comments about the audit as well that I'm required to share with council. I'm happy to entertain questions as I go through. I'll pause it appropriately as I go through the statements, and happy to answer questions as we go. So turning to page one is management's responsibility for financial reporting. So this is going to be signed by the CAO and Manager of Finance on behalf of the municipality. And this really is just confirmation that management is ultimately responsible for the financial reporting for the municipality. It's very typical, very common to include that in the financial statements as evidence. Turning to page two, we have our independent auditor's report. So this is our actual deliverable. It is addressed to members of council, inhabitants, and ratepayers of the municipality of Southwest Middlesex, and it is our audit opinion. So the second paragraph down says, in our opinion, the municipality's consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2024, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public accounting standards. So that opinion is consistent with previous years, and it is what we call a clean audit opinion. The remainder of the auditor's report goes through the responsibilities of management, as well as those charged with governance, which will be represented by council, and then my responsibilities as the auditor. Turning to page three, you can see that assuming these statements are approved this evening, they will be dated October 15th, 2025. Turning to page four, we have the consolidated statement of financial position. There we go. So this is the financial assets and liabilities of the municipality at a point in time, that point in time being December 31st, 2024, which is the municipality's year end. I'm going to comment on a few of the year-over-year variances. So first, drawing your attention to cash, you see that there was no cash on hand at December 31st, 2024. In fact, at that date, there was a bank overdraft. And we'll talk a bit more about the use of cash as we go through these statements. In terms of taxes receivable, we see an increase there, and that's going to relate to slower collections. That is common in the case of economic turmoil as we're seeing currently in the economy, and we'll look at the breakdown of that when we get to note 4. Note 5 is going to go through the details of accounts receivable. The main increase in this account really relates to unbilled drain work. So one of the things I will point out is with that increase in taxes receivable and the increase in accounts receivable, one of the things is really important to stay on top of collections because that will help with the cash balance in the bank. Turning our attention to financial liabilities, there is the deferred revenue, which is the obligatory reserve funds. We'll see some of those amounts in note 9. So those are amounts such as formerly known as gas tax that are received and they're earmarked for a specific purpose. And so these ones had not been spent at December 31st, 2024 and were earmarked for spending in a future period. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities, we see a bit of a decrease from prior year. At the end of 2023, there were some additional payables in the payables balance relating to the arena renovations. There was no similar ongoing large project at the end of 2024. Asset retirement obligations, that's relating to the landfill closure. So that specific disclosure is the result of some accounting changes that came into place previously, and we'll look at that a little bit closer when we look at note 16, but it is a required liability to put on the statement of financial position to indicate the amount that is likely to be paid in the future relating to closing landfills. So total financial liabilities there, 9.1 million. So when you take your financial assets less your financial liabilities, municipality is currently in a debt position of 2.9 million. Looking at the non-financial assets, the largest, of course, being tangible capital assets, we see an increase year over year. So in 2023, the arena was completed. There was a WIP transfer to put that into tangible capital assets in 2024. There's some infrastructure upgrades, and then there's some current projects on the go as well. In general, the increase is there was more spent on tangible capital assets than there was incurred in amortization. So total non-financial assets, 84 million. So the accumulated surplus sitting there at 81 million. That accumulated remeasurement gains and losses, of course, no balance year over year. That's the result of some accounting standard changes, but there's nothing that's applicable to this municipality. I am turning the page now to page 5. So this is the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. First column I'll draw your attention to is the budget column. And when we get to note 17, we'll see that this is the PSAP budget, or the budget for accounting purposes. So of course, the original approved council budget does net out to zero, as it should, but then there are some PSAP adjustments for things such as capital, which are treated differently for budgeting purposes as for accounting purposes. And so those adjustments get made in note 17, and this is the disclosed accounting budget, or PSAP budget. Looking at the year-over-year variances for revenues, we see really a modest increase there from 12.3 million in 2023 to 13.4 in 2024. It's relatively in line with budget. There was a small tax increase year-over-year. We're seeing an increase in the user charges related to water, sewer, and arena as well. An increase in operational government transfers there, and an increase in interest as interest rates are, of course, increasing. We also see an increase in penalties and interest on taxes, and as I mentioned, there's also an increase in those taxes receivable. So with those outstanding balances, perhaps incurring some penalties, that's where we see that increase in revenue. In terms of expenses, again, things are pretty comparable both to prior year and to anticipated budget. Most of the line items are pretty comparable. In terms of environmental, last year there was a significant increase in 2023 relating to the amount that needed to be accrued for the landfill liability. There was an amount accrued again this year, but it was a smaller amount in line with the estimates of the expected closure costs. So we see a bit of a decrease in the environmental costs there. Recreational and cultural services, there's some additional expenses included in there relating to the daycare and some landscaping that took place. Our total expenses for the year, 13.5 million. So for accounting purposes, before we get to the capital transfers, there's a small deficit of 91,000. We then have the government transfers related to capital, and then the small loss on disposal of tangible capital assets. So those were just old assets that were retired or otherwise disposed of, no proceeds for those particular assets. So in excess of revenue over expenses for the year for 2024 for accounting purposes of 985,000. Okay. See any questions? I'm going to continue on. In terms of page 6, this is really just accounting disclosure. It's a repeat of some of the information we've already talked about. The one thing I will draw your attention to is just the differential between the acquisition of tangible capital assets and the amortization. So what you like to see in most businesses, municipalities included, is those numbers are relatively comparable, because that means you're investing in new assets at the same rate as you are using up your assets. In your case, you're actually investing more heavily in your assets relative to the rate of amortization. So just something interesting to look at there.
Well, I have a question there.
Yes.
So we were told before with amortization that we were just doing it equalized. Now it looks like we're putting too much in amortization.
So amortization is based on your policies, and we'll see those in a few pages. So when you buy a piece of equipment, perhaps it gets amortized over a period of, say, 10 years as an example, so you expense 1/10 of it each year for accounting purposes. Now, if you have to buy that new piece of equipment in less than 10 years because it's worn out too early, then maybe your amortization policy is not quite right, or sometimes equipment lasts longer than its amortization rate. So I think all this is saying is that's the amount that has been amortized relative to expenses. The interesting piece is the acquisition is such a big number because you're investing a lot in capital assets at the moment. Did that answer your question?
Oh, well, sort of, but it still sounds like, well, excuse me, it still sounds like that that we are putting too much into amortization.
We can maybe deal with this. I think the report should be given in its entirety, and then we'll ask questions at that point. But Councillor Lee, we won't forget that amortization question you have. We'll make sure that you get a satisfactory answer going to it.
Sounds great, thank you. Okay, I am going to turn the page now. I'm actually going to go past the statement of cash flows because I think I've already hit on some of the items there, although this is a place to see the reduction in cash year over year, but it is really coming from those acquisition of tangible capital assets. That's the bulk of what you're spending on at the moment. So I am turning to page 8. So note 1 is a change in accounting policies. They are always changing these required policies on us. Last year, there was a number of policy changes. For 2024, there's just one. It's related to the revenue accounting policies. And so we did adopt the change, but there were no significant impacts to your financial statements as a result. So you're in compliance, you've changed your policies as necessary, but it didn't change anything in your particular case. Note 2 is the summary of significant accounting policies. None of these policies have changed this year. But I will pause briefly on page 10 under tangible capital assets. There we go. And this is just the details of the amortization rate, so just how, what period each type of asset is amortized over. And in theory, that should reflect their useful life. That's the idea behind amortization. So I just wanted to highlight that for when we come back to that question later on. Okay, I am going to, because there were no changes in your accounting policies, I'm going to go all the way to page 14, note 4. Okay, so we have the breakdown here of taxes receivable, and this is what I was mentioning when we were on the statement of financial position. So it breaks down the current taxes receivable, arrears, and then penalty and interest. And what we're seeing here is a bit of an increase in the current taxes receivable. So just that it is building up, and it would be good if some attention could be paid to collecting that amount to improve the cash flow. We can also see there a slight increase of the allowance for doubtful accounts, so that's based on management's specific identification of areas of concern. Note 5 is accounts receivable. So again, we're breaking down all the components of accounts receivable, and the item I highlighted when we were on the statement of financial position does relate to that municipal drain work. So this is unbilled drain work. So last year it was at 1.3 million, this year it's at 2.1 million. So again, if some attention could be put towards collecting that drain work, that would again help with the cash in the municipality. Note 6 just discloses the terms of your available short-term financing, which was in use at December 31st, 2024. Note 7 is about your tangible capital assets, and I already mentioned what some of the additions were during the year. Really the big change was taking the amount out of work in progress related to the arena from 2023 and capitalizing it fully in 2024. I'm turning to note 8 on page 17. So this is the net long-term liabilities. The main thing I wanted to point out here is at this point, the municipality has no external debt, so the only amount that is a long-term liability does relate to the tile drainage loans. I am turning to page 18, note 9, deferred revenue. So again, this is a breakout of grant funding that has been received, but it was not spent in 2024, but there is a plan to spend those monies in a future period. So that's your OCIF funding, your Canada Community Building Fund, which is the new name for the gas tax, and then Building Department Fund as well. And all of those are obligatory reserve funds, so they have specific things that they can be spent on. In terms of the accumulated surplus, this is a breakdown sort of the historic earnings. The earnings for all time is what's in your accumulated surplus. So the easiest number to explain right off the bat is invested in tangible capital assets. So that amount agrees to the amount that you have in tangible capital assets at their amortized cost. We then have reserves, which you'll see on the next page, an itemized list of all of your reserves, reserve funds for water and reserve funds for sewer, which are required. We then have amounts to be recovered, so landfill closure and post-closure costs. So that's an amount set up because of the liability that's expected to be incurred to close those, but has not yet been funded. And then similarly, unfunded capital. So when you undertake a capital project, such as the arena as an example, there can be a mixture of ways of funding that asset. Some of it might be internal, some of it might be through grants. Some municipalities choose to debenture that type of purchase, and that would make the asset funded. In your case, this is the accumulation of unfunded capital here at $9.6 million. I think in terms of the increase in that, I think one of the reasons we can think about is relating to the arena. In terms of paying for the arena, there was initially anticipated to be a bit more grant funding than actually materialized, so it ended being funded a bit more internally than expected. In terms of the reserve funds, you can see the details of them on page 19 and note 11. It is a really long list of all the reserves. And reserves really represent a savings account, money that's earmarked for a specific purpose. One thing I did want to point out is that some municipalities actually do have a corresponding amount of cash or investments equal to the amount that they have in reserves, as you would with a savings account. But in your particular case, there is not the money set aside equal to the reserves of $6.2 million. So that again can lead to some cash flow challenges when you go to spend money that you've set aside for a future purpose, but you haven't set aside the corresponding amount of cash. Okay, I am actually going to go all the way to note 16. Note 16 on page 22. So this relates to the landfill closure. And this is required to estimate the amount of liability that will be incurred in the future for the closure of landfills. In your case, there are two. There's the Trillium site and the Limerick site. The estimated future cost of the closure is at $4.9 million. So that is based on third-party estimates as to what it is expected to cost. And the point I wanted to really raise, which I have raised before at council, is just that the amount sitting in reserve to cover those costs of $4.9 million is currently $1.5 million. So that's what's sitting in reserves for that future expense. So as we're getting closer to the time when landfills are desired to be closed, it may be a time to really try our best to fill up that reserve so that the money will be available when the time comes. Okay, page 23, note 17. So this is the budget that I was referring to. So the approved budget is the budget that was originally approved by council. It comes to zero. Then we have our adjustments to make it a PSAP budget, with the main difference being things like capital expenditures, which are treated different for accounting purposes. I am going to touch on note 18. So note 18 is financial instruments. This outlines the various risks of the municipality, and in particular under credit risk, there's some details around the accounts receivable and what's sitting in there right now and where the risks might be. But other than that, there are no significant changes to risk. Some municipalities who have external debt may have some interest rate risks or other risks that your municipality does not have. That really brings us to the end of the financial statements. At the end of the statements, there are some schedules providing more details on the revenues and expenses, but I've already touched on some of the year-over-year variances. So at this point, I will take questions on the statements.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Just out of respect to Councillor Vink, Martin, I think what you're alluding to is that we've been too aggressive in amortizing our assets, such as trucks and things like that. Yeah, Martin, your question, I interpreted as we're being too aggressive in amortization of our assets. And there must be a protocol for that. I think Councillor Vink wants to know if there's more shelf life to some of the assets that we're evaluating.
Right, so if we look at the policy again, in note 2, it's on page 10, so it just shows you how long the expected life is for those assets. And that is a significant estimate because no one knows exactly how long an asset is going to last, but it's something that management would be looking at regularly. And where we come in as auditors is if we're seeing significant gains or losses when an asset is retired, then we'll say, oh, perhaps there's a mismatch in the length of your amortization period. We haven't been seeing that at this point, so we feel overall that your amortization rates are appropriate, but on a specific asset by asset basis, that may be a fair point, and it's something that management should be looking at regularly just to make sure.
Any other questions, Council? Yes, Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. You mentioned the municipal drain collections have gone up, the amount that we haven't billed out, that we haven't received.
That's right.
I think the way that it's done is it's not billed out until after we get the 1/3 agricultural part. You're saying no?
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
ahead.
May I,
Please.
Mayor Mayhew to council. So we do, historically, some municipalities have waited till the 1/3 is done, but I can confirm that we did a very large billing in the spring of 2025. Those receivables have gone out to residents and then they have the opportunity to venture back through their taxes. So although that balance is there for 2024, I can confirm that balance is significantly less. So what I've done historically is we accrue for that 1/3 grant. If the grant comes back at a different amount by the province, we then adjust through a maintenance billing, but we can bill out as soon as the construction's done and it's past its maintenance phase. I can't speak to what's been done in the past, but I can tell you that is how the Drainage Act works and that's how we'll be behaving in the future. But in 2025, in the spring, that $2 million was greatly reduced.
Okay, so it sounds, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we're doing things differently now, and so that amount should go down.
100%.
Okay.
Well, not by 100%, but 100% we're on it.
Yeah.
And then can I ask
Follow
one,
up? Yeah,
can I ask
follow-up.
one more question? A totally different thing. You mentioned the arena, how we didn't get as much grant money as we thought we were gonna get. Could you comment on that?
Right, I don't have the full cost breakdown in front of me at the moment, but yeah, so when you originally budgeted for the arena, there would have been different sources of funding to pay for that. I think one of the sources that didn't come through was perhaps a Trillium grant, so that it was anticipated that that grant would come towards the arena, and then in the end, it didn't materialize, so the municipality ends up funding more of the arena, I believe, for that specific project.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mayor Mayhew, may I help Jennifer out with this as she doesn't have the file in front of her? So the project was built, we did get a provincial grant of $1.7 million for the arena, as council will remember. We did have some change orders to that project, which put the project over the budgeted amount, which was originally presented to council. And with our internal debt program, the plan was to internally recover the debt through our internal debt program. And I did make some notes in line with that conversation with the arena. We can see through the financial statements in 2023, we had $4.7 million of capital, and then in 2024, we had $4 million. That's $9 million worth of spending on capital projects in 2-year cycle. And that is also related back to the arena, which falls in line with what Jennifer was just talking about. We internally financed more than what we had expected for the arena project.
I think, just if I could ask a question, both to Jennifer and Denise, had we have debentured that shortfall, we would have been in a better financial position. Is that correct? And debenture, debt is not a four-letter word. It can be used as a tool to stabilize your financial position. Is the mayor incorrect in saying that?
You're not incorrect. I will use a household analogy. So I would think of a debenture for a large capital project like an arena as being like a mortgage on a house. So mortgage is often considered good household debt as opposed to credit card debt, which would be considered sort of bad debt. So debenturing a large capital project like that would be something typically done by municipalities for financing purposes.
Yeah. And just one follow-up, council, if you would, I think we have to review that subject at an administrative level. And perhaps, in the resolution the council has, I'd like to see that staff bring back a report on that to put forth a template to council that internal financing is not completely beneficial to the municipality because it impacts our cash flow and working capital, I would say. But yeah, I see some heads nodding, and I think before this conversation closes, I think the chair is going to try to direct that to be done. Okay, any other? Yes, Councilor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, this is the first time I heard that there was a shortfall, so I don't think that was really right. And secondly, another question to Jennifer is, we're going to be undertaking a large project for flooding in Glencoe, called the Glencoe Outlet Drain. Is any of that factored into this statement?
This is historic numbers up to December 31st, 2024, so it doesn't consider future spending.
Jennifer, if I could, the province puts guidelines on debt, and it's based on the size of the municipality, size of revenue. There's a formula that gives us a threshold of whether we're over or under as a community health and run healthy. Where are we?
Right now you have zero external debt, so you would be very healthy.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor Schultes, go ahead, please.
Mayor Minnick, I would just like to point out that there is a few reserves here that I think maybe we should move. That are kind of motivating the former Apple Park Board and Northville candidates. There's just a few here that I think we could.
Yeah, they're redundant, so to speak, and we'll certainly can come staff and look at that. And I don't want to miss anyone. Any further questions? There is a recommendation staff have made that financial statements prepared by Graham Scott Enns are accepted and approved as presented. This is a very important recommendation. Our auditors need this by council, but I think we can expand on that following that. The recommendation is before you to accept the financial statements as presented. Is there a mover and a second? Okay, Deputy Mayor Schultes, Councilor Bank, all in favor? Thank you. Denise, I would like to see council have the opportunity to have a presentation from staff following Jennifer's recommendations, and there may be some dialogue, future dialogue between yourself and Jennifer over the course of a report that comes back to council. And Kendra, we'll need your help on this, but I would like council to instruct staff administration to bring back a report to council on fiscal management improvements that they see that might come forth, and possibly the scenario. This is going to be complex. What scenarios came forth to put us in the position we are. And I think what I'm asking for is that bring back a report to council with the auditor's recommendation. And I would like to put in there the advantages and disadvantages of internal funding. Okay? Okay. advantages and disadvantages of internal funding. Because I think both administration and council have to really look at this. I'll move that. There's a second. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate that. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Jennifer, thank you very much for being our overseer on this. Appreciate it.
I was just going to make a couple quick questions. So in the council package, there's also what's called an audit findings letter. And so I am obligated to share that with those charged with governance, council. Just it goes through the different categories of how the audit went. So that letter is there for you to read, but I wanted to draw your attention to it as well.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, council, we'll move on. Consent agenda is before us. I'll read the note. If there's any that you wish pulled out, just advise the chair and we'll deal with it immediately. Should there not be, if it was complex, we'll deal with it under new business. Draft minutes of the regular meeting of October 1st. Yeah.
Yes, we had excuse me, thank you, Mayor. We had a recorded vote, and up to now, I've seen, we've always had names mentioned on how they voted, either against or for. There's no mention here, and I would like to see either for or against on here.
I agree. Yep. And Kendra, can you speak to that?
Yes, it was brought to my attention and it has been fixed.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Okay. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. And that's the purpose of recorded votes, to identify the opinions of council.
The version on there now should be fixed.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Martin, for bringing that up. Middlesex County Community Safety Zones. Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wondered if we've applied for any of our school zones for this. I'm thinking in particular back home.
Through you, Mayor, I can confirm that at this time we have not submitted applications.
Could we consider doing that?
Certainly, if there was a council direction or resolution, we absolutely could.
I think that's good. Why don't we deal with that right now? Deputy Mayor, will you move that consideration given to Park House Road as a community safety zone? And there could be some improvements made, even on signage there, I think, too. I really like some of these center line flags that I see them in a lot of communities. I know they're burdensome for staff. I know they are. Staff taking down during plowing season, but they really stop traffic big time. I know they're high maintenance, but they can save lives. Is there a seconder for the Deputy Mayor's recommendation? Councilor Haggett, any questions? All in favor? If we consider it as a community safety zone and staff bring back a report to us? Okay, thank you. That's carried. SCRCA September meeting highlights. Middlesex London Health Board September meeting summary. County Council highlights September 23rd. And the voucher report for Southwest Middlesex for September. Council, we have gone through that. What's your wish? Can the consent agenda be accepted as presented with the inclusions of the direction of council? Is there a movement or second? No. Okay. Councilor Myers, Councilor Haggett. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Kendra, I trust you got that. Thanks very much for your wordsmithing there. It's very handy. Council, well, we're about to go on committee of adjustment. I need a recommendation that the Council of Southwest Middlesex and committee of adjustment at 6:38 p.m. Is there a mover and a second? Councilor McGill, second for that, please. Councilor Vick, all in favor? Carried. Council, we're now on committee of adjustment. We'll call the meeting to order. Time has been allocated at 6:38 again. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we can move on then. The minutes of the last committee meeting have been circulated. The chair will entertain a motion that the September 17th Committee of Adjustment minutes are received and approved by the committee. Can that be forthcoming? Deputy Mayor Schultz, Councilor McCollum, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Committee of Adjustment, we are talking about minor variance application A6 2025 submitted by Joseph and Crystal of 3220 Longwoods Road. The planner will present their report to staff and will please give you the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum setback requirement from the center line of a local road, being Old Airport Road, to permit the construction of a horse barn with a reduced setback. The proposed barn would accommodate 2 horses and would be 120.4 square meters in size. Additionally, the application seeks relief from the minimum distance separation MDS2 requirements concerning the minimum setback for the proposed barn from both the nearest road allowance and the nearest lot line. So with regard to the setback from the center line of a local road, the bylaw requires a setback of 28 meters, whereas the applicant is requiring a setback of 12.8 meters. And I'd like to note that the notice incorrectly stated that the requested setback from the center line is 1 meter. It's actually proposed to be 12.8 meters, which is approximately 1 meter from the lot line. Additionally, MDS2 requires a setback from the nearest lot line of 8 meters, whereas the applicant is proposing 1 meter. And MDS2 also requires a setback from the nearest road allowance of 17 meters, whereas 1 meter is being requested. So the applicants have advised that the concrete pad for the proposed barn has already been poured, and the cost to alter or relocate the pad would be significant. So as a result, this application has been submitted. And for anyone who has passed by the site within the last week or so, you may have seen barn materials on the property. And just to note, these materials are not the exact location of the proposed barn. They're just being stored there during this process, and that the cement pad is slightly set back further west. So with regard to policy, the provincial planning statement states new land uses in prime agricultural areas, including the creation of lots and new or expanding livestock facilities shall comply with minimum distance separation formula. And the MDS guidelines set out by the province indicates that MDS2 setbacks should not be reduced except in limited site-specific circumstances that meet the intent of the MDS document. And examples include circumstances that mitigate the environment or public health and safety impacts or avoid natural or human-made hazards. Additionally, generally, OMAFRA does not support or encourage reductions to MDS setbacks. Allowing for reductions to MDS setbacks can increase the potential for land use conflicts and undermine the intent of the MDS guideline. So with regard to the county official plan and the Southwest Middlesex official plan, they both echo the provincial planning statement, and they state new or expanding livestock facilities shall comply with minimum distance separation. So with regard to staff's evaluation of the subject application, staff have evaluated the variances against the 4 tests of a minor variance, and is of the opinion that the 4 tests have not all been met. So with regard to the variance being considered minor in nature, while the location of the proposed horse barn would comply with the minimum setback requirements from the nearest dwelling, with regard to MDS2, there are concerns that the variances, which would result in the horse barn being located a minimum of 1 meter from the easterly property line, would not provide adequate separation to the traveled roadway or road allowance, and may compromise road safety, future road widening and maintenance operations such as snow plowing, ditching, and road drainage. And as it's anticipated that the variances will result in unacceptable adverse impacts to the traveled roadway, staff is of the opinion that the variance is not considered minor in nature. With regard to the variance being desirable for the appropriate use of land, Section 8.2 of the MDS document contains evaluation criteria for MDS2 relief. So surrounding land uses, environmental concerns, safety, and practicality are all criteria. So with regard to safety concerns, as previously indicated, there are concerns with the location of the horse barn and not providing adequate separation from the traveled roadway and may compromise road safety. With regard to practicality, while staff does not believe the requested reduced setback from the center line and from the nearest lot line would increase odor impacts on surrounding land uses, as the location would exceed the setback requirement from the nearest dwelling, the location of the proposed horse barn is not considered to be consistent with the intent of the setback from the center line of the road as required by the zoning bylaw, which is to ensure adequate distance between the proposed barn and the travel portion of the roadway. And lastly, with regard to the variance maintaining the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as mentioned, the purpose of this setback from the center line of the road is to maintain adequate distance from the traveled portion of the roadway and buildings or structures. And then additionally, the general intent of MDS2 setbacks is to minimize potential impacts associated with livestock operations on surrounding land uses, particularly those residential in nature. And the requested setbacks would result in the horse barn being located approximately 1 meter from the nearest lot line and 1 meter from the nearest road allowance. So with regard to agency comments received, we have received comments from the county engineer, the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, the manager of public works, the deputy chief building official, and the drainage superintendent. And these comments are all located or noted in the report. I would like to note that we did get a clarification comment from the CDO, Arnie, who advised he can confirm that the concrete pad on site was poured without a building permit. Upon discovery that this work was completed, the owner was advised of the need for permits and inspections and agreed to stop any further construction. They've since advised building division that they have sections of the barn en route to the site and asked if parts can be stored there. Arnie had advised they may receive and store the materials on site until the location of the building was approved and a permit was issued, and they've agreed to drop the materials off on site and not to assemble. The building division team was on site last week and can confirm the materials for the building have been dropped off, but that construction has also ceased beyond the construction of the footing/floor. With regard to public comments, we did receive public comments from Victoria, Eric, and Owen Simpson. So they have since revised their comments, which were circulated to council, but also received after the posting of the agenda. So these comments are relatively similar to what was submitted earlier, but they note that they have objections for the proposed variances and have noted that the barn has created safety and access issues where machinery and materials are left on or near the road, further obstructing access. And their primary concern as both neighbors and users of the roadway is that any structure and fencing remain a safe and functional distance from the road so that it continues to be accessible and usable for everyone. So staff recommend that the report be received for information and that the application to permit the construction of a horse barn with reduced setbacks and reduced MDS setbacks be refused. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That was a tough file, and a complex file. I just want to remind council, and particularly the gallery, that we are in committee and there's a process that we follow. This process allows everyone to have a say, everyone to be heard, and everyone to be treated equally. So bear with the chair, and there's about 7 steps that we have to go through before and the decision is made on that 7th step. Thank you again, Melinda. The applicant will be allowed to speak to the application. Are they present? Good. If you could come to the microphone and just for the record, state your name. Denise will make sure you're comfortable there, you're wired up. And if you could begin by just stating your name that the clerk can grasp that.
Hello, my name is Joseph Trulaga.
Okay. We'll take a shot at spelling that. Thank you for joining.
I'm Alexis White.
Yeah, you bet. I assume that, you bet. Please go ahead, make yourself comfortable, we're here to listen.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here today and let me speak my voice. Obviously, there's a lot to say here, and first, we'd like to kind of address the elephant in the room. We apologize for having the concrete pad poured before the permits were completed. We were actually in the process of doing the permits while the concrete pad was being poured. We were given poor advice by someone that we followed, and it was unfortunate that we did it this way. So hence we are here today to talk about the variance, hopefully. I work as an engineer. I work as a risk consultant for an insurance company, a fairly large insurance company. And I do surveys of facilities all the time, and I kind of enforce the rule a lot. But I also know that there is some leeway in many cases. In this case, I think it's a special case. I think that 99% of the roadways in this area, all these regulations would apply. But the reality is we're the only house on this roadway. The maintenance stops at our house. The road is roughly 600 meters long, and only the first 200 meters is maintained at our house. So it's really, you guys only work towards our house. Yes, we are a little bit closer to the roadway. I think some of the people who've seen where it originally was, where the building is placed right now, assume that's where it was going to be. So that was a concern. We know it's going to be set back further where the concrete pad is. We've had discussions. First and foremost, one of the important things to me is how my neighbors feel about this. And before we even got that letter from the citizens, we invited them to come over, and they came over today. I was in Toronto, unfortunately, working, but my wife had discussions with them, and they also thought the farm was going to be where it's placed right now, and not where its actual intention is going to be. So they have told us, and they will have to confirm themselves that they were going to rescind that letter that they put in, and we've also taken care of and addressed all the other issues that they've had in that letter. We want to be good neighbors, and we want to be good members of, Glencoe and Southwest Middlesex. So we want to take care of those issues. As a risk consultant, when I go visit clients and do surveys and make recommendations, one of the things I always ask myself when I make a recommendation is, what would a reasonable person do in a situation? So I look at the situation, we're the only house on this road. It's maintained only to my house, it's not maintained past my house. What are the future plans for this area? I look across and I see a very successful farm, Simpson Farm, generational farm. They've been there for many years. The two young sons who live there, work there, Eric and Owen, they're younger than me. They're going to own this property for a very long time. It's unlikely that they're going to sell it anytime in the near future. So I doubt there's going to be very many changes. Would they extend the road beyond to the river and maybe a bridge? Well, there's no road on the other side to connect it to. And there's flat siding on one side, and there's Simpson Road on the other side. Both give you access over the bridge. I don't really see any real changes in the near future, at least not in my lifetime. Then again, I'm a little overweight, so that might not be very long. So as a reasonable person, I look at that and I don't see that it really affects anybody but my neighbors. So if they're okay with it, I'm very much okay with it. Do you have anything to add to that?
In terms of, here we are not, I'm a soft speaker to gentlemen.
Yeah, and again, you'll have to state your name for the record.
Yes, I'm Crystal Trulaga, just white. And the only other thing is actually I was speaking with Public Works a few days ago, and essentially is concerned with regards to gas lines, future expansion in terms of internet or any piping, drainage, all those things that you can do along roadways and whatnot. And our side of the road has the ditch where all of the main water rain goes through and goes down to the creek. And so we've actually improved the drainage there in order to allow the water to more easily go where necessary, so that there's less flooding. And so we put some tiling in order to actually improve all of that. So, on that topic anyways, normally I would assume from just my awareness the gas lines and all of those different things that could be put into that area are typically done on the opposite side of the road from where the horse barn would be because of the ditch and the waterway and whatnot. All of the implements currently are there now. So in terms of expansion, you know, I don't foresee any issue in terms of what you would put down that way, because everything runs underneath the hydro line, not under where we are. And the other portion to that is I made mention of if, you know, a future, I don't remember the name of those, but those big metal O-rings, culverts, thank you. You know, if a culvert were put in, well, I was told by friends that essentially that, you know, that whole ditch and everything was already done, I think, less than 2 years ago or whatnot. So I don't foresee any expansion on that, and if they did, there is still a substantial amount of room to get equipment in, because I need to get equipment in through there anyhow to be able to move large hay bales and whatnot for the animals and whatnot. So I know that it doesn't need to comply with regulations, but the other buildings on our property that were there since 1800s basically, don't comply with that either. And I get that the regulations and whatnot have changed, but you know, it's just, I don't foresee any issues, especially when it comes to expansion.
And if I can add one last thing, considering the fact that the ditch is there, it really wouldn't impede with maintenance because it wouldn't drive over the ditch or, you know, get stuck, right? So it's as of now, as everything is now, and likely there's no foreseeable future changes, it wouldn't impede in any future maintenance problems or current maintenance issues that we see right now.
Yeah, and we're happy to take over the maintenance of the road, to be honest. And we were told that it was only plowed 2 or 3 times last year, and we have all the equipment to take care of that for the entire road, not just the first little bit as well. And in terms of, I know one of the other concerns was, you know, if somebody were taxing to drive down the road and drive off of the road and drive into the horse barn, I mean, they'd have to go a good chunk, like, it's about 42 feet from the center of the road, right? So, the likelihood of that happening, I think the ditch would probably stop it first, but if it did, we said that we could, if you asked us to, put a barrier in front at the roadside as well as an option. We're just trying to see, it's a house that was basically used as a junkyard previously. It's been not well taken care of, and we've done a lot of work to clean it up and make it much more beautiful and et cetera. And, you know, financial is always a huge weight, and it's been a lot more financially than we anticipated to take on, but we've, you know, pushed ahead anyways, so we're just hoping that we can make the fitness and ask that, you know, we don't have to do that.
Good. I think that conversation is starting to repeat itself, so we'll, I think we've hit the end. And again, there's a process. There may be some comments from councillors and that. You will have the opportunity one more time to speak to council, if you so wish. Committee members' remarks. Any questions? Any concerns? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Joseph and Crystal, why did you only apply for 1 meter mile? It would have been more reasonable to say 7 or 8 meters, you know, halfway through, or whatever.
Did you want me to do that? So sorry, just to answer your question. Basically what happened is before we even started any construction, we had called in to the police department, and we'd also spoken with our builder and inquired about, you know, all of what we can and can't do, what the bylaws are, et cetera. We were given this information, and so because of that, we had already started pouring and doing concrete and whatnot, because we were told that we didn't need any permitting for that. So yes, it's incorrect. We found that out already partially through it already being done. And so that's why we halted, and that's why we asked for the minor variance. So it wasn't our intent to go against regulations. It was just that we were given poor information, unfortunately, very expectantly. And if we had known, we would have moved the location of the barn. But right now, we're just asking the opposite.
Okay, no follow-up? Yeah, go ahead.
So, there is a situation where you could probably just use part of the pad if, like, say, you went back so many meters. Wouldn't that be a solution?
I think using part of that pad as an apron to an alternate location, the pad would be an apron around the entrance to the barn. So
If we did set it back, let's say we shifted it however many meters to away from the road, it's definitely an option, but it's an option that's, again, gonna cost us thousands of dollars. And, you know, it's better than creating a new pad, 100%. But it's also very expensive when everything else we have going on. So we're hoping that we don't have to do that, but.
So another concern with that is kind of the timing of it. Obviously, we have very nice weather right now, but in order for the animals to have shelter for the winter, it's kind of one of the reasons why we're looking at the hay season what we did. We wanted to make sure everything was up and ready for the horses. So having that done, it would be pretty difficult to make sure that pad was poured before then, and we know how to begin to move forward.
Yeah, everything was supposed to be done, built, in the barn, everything finished within the end of August, early September, and here we are now, in October.
okay. I think we'll move on. Any more questions? Thank you, Martin, for that. Any more questions? Well, I must say that as body governance, we have to take seriously the standards that are put in place by the province. And secondly, you mentioned that you had a conversation with the citizens on this to rescind that letter. Currently, it's still there. It's in our notes, and you know, council cannot go on the handshake. You know, we need something more stable than that. Okay, and we'll certainly try to delve into that before we adjourn this committee. But some of the suggestions are well taken. But again, we have to have something that's more tangible than just a conversation. And I'm sure you can understand that as a body of governance. Okay, council, last call for questions.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, I'll get there, okay? Committee members' remarks, we got that oral submissions, in fact, I will put you under an oral submission, go ahead.
Oh, no?
Yep. But you'll have to come to the microphone and state your name.
I don't have much to say, but my name is Mary Van, I'm their aunt. I don't know, how many of you visited the place? How many of you actually seen what's going on there? Have you seen the work they've done to clean up that place? They made a boo-boo, whoop-de-doo. It's not a big road. I mean, if you look at that road, it looks like a laneway. You guys don't keep it up like you do the rest of Old Drive. If it's Old Drive, it should look like the rest of Old Drive. It doesn't. Or not Old Drive.
Airport.
Airport Road. It should look like Airport Road, and it doesn't. It looks like a laneway. It's not as wide as Airport Road, but, so I don't understand the problem here. I get your rules, but I think it's for a horse farm for 2 horses. Like, come on. I get the rules, but I just think this is.
I think the rules are made for an intention.
But they can be adjusted, and believe me, I've seen them done in this township.
Yeah, and they have to, there's also the aspect of many of these rules are put down to mitigate liability. And that's, and as, you know, we're administering a corporation in Southwest Middlesex. We have to be conscious of liability all the time.
Which I understand, but how come you can change rules for some things, but other things you can't? You have rules, and yet you can adjust.
We sometimes minor variances that be very minor in nature, like just a foot or 2, okay? And yes, we can accept minor variances for that. It depends how you interpret minor, okay? And in this case, it's
It's the only house. Like,
no, it's the only house.
That's it, I'm just saying, it's silly.
Okay. Council, we're moving on. Anyone else in the gallery, the chair will allow certainly any comments on this. I ask you to make your points very pointed and quickly. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue that are present? No one? I see heads shaking. Okay. Yep, one person, yeah, we'll give you one more crack at that microphone, okay? And you'll have an opportunity to speak shortly.
Yeah.
All right, so, no other in the gallery, no other oral submission. We have got the written submissions, and they're on file with council, we're aware of them. We're at step number 6 of 7, applicant's final remarks, and that would allow you this opportunity right now.
I guess final remarks, the only thing, you've addressed most things already, but in regards to the comment about the Simpsons refusal, we only had them over to discuss the notice this afternoon because we were only made aware of it this afternoon. It was recently submitted. And so we spoke probably around 1 o'clock this afternoon, Vicky, Owen, and Eric, and myself. And they were under the impression that where the barn is currently located is where it was going to be. And they didn't realize that it's going to be moved, pushed back about 24 feet to the concrete pad where it's going to be. And their only concern for having that, which they've made aware to me, is that when they go through with their tractors that have the big wings, the sprayers and whatnot, that they need to be able to get through. And where it currently is will be a problem, but where it will be on the pad will not be a problem. And so they've said, oh, my apologies, that's, not, that location is not going to be an issue. So that's one of the things to be addressed in there. The other one was that there was an implement from a skid steer left on the opposite side of the road accidentally. It was by one of the contractors, which unfortunately I didn't realize that it was a problem and nobody had communicated. So we have since they gave us notice, I used my own tractor and moved it over back to our site, out of the way from everything else. We've also, they made mention to along the roadside, we had some of our implements. We had them there only for access because the property was so full of garbage that we didn't have anywhere else to put them. And so we have cleaned up a lot of that garbage, but it's still there and still collecting and still working on that. So we have now moved all of the implements to a back area that has been cleaned up to correct that and make for allowance and room for that. So we've corrected all of the issues that they have had a problem with, and I understand that we need more formal notice, but if you could speak with them, I imagine that they would tell you the same story that I've just told you now. But essentially, we have addressed everything that they had a concern with. And that's all that I have to say, because as Joe mentioned before, we are trying to be compliant, but unfortunately, we've kind of been put between a rock and a hard place. It's just, the permitting, we weren't aware of. So
I cannot speak as to how council will vote on this matter, but again, we would need something tangible in writing. If this doesn't go through by council's decision, you would have to revisit us with another application and with a better understanding of where that building would be. And I can't speak on planning's behalf whether they would even accept that application, but
I do know that Vicky and Eric and Owen said that they would be present tonight in order
They
to
are?
speak.
okay, and they have been invited to
Yeah.
speak, and they chose not to. Okay,
Oh, okay.
all right. Yes, Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was wondering if I could ask Crystal another question. So you say the concrete pad is how many meters from the boundary?
12.8 meters from the boundary or from the road center?
No, from the boundary of the road.
From the boundary, so from the center of the road, it's 12.8 meters. From our property line, it's 1 meter. Because there's basically, like I was mentioning, 11.8 meters between the center of the road and the allowance. So we're actually set back from the ditch, we're set back about 20 feet
And if I could ask another question, how big is this horse barn? I know it was stated by Mary that it was room for 2 horses, but in my judgment, the amount of square footage that I think it is, it would certainly hold more than 2 horses.
The square footage is a 36-foot by 36-foot pad. There is 3 stalls there. One we just wanted as extra storage space. The other 2 are for the horses. The other side is for storage of some hay temporarily, and then there's also a tack room, feed room where I put all the food and et cetera. So if you had horses before, you would be surprised. It wouldn't be surprised at how much stuff you have in order to put in there. So yes, the horses themselves are only taking up 12 by 24 feet, and the rest is all the stuff to take care of those horses, including an aisleway for me to maneuver in.
And we're going to regard that as applicant's final remarks. We're going to have to move on in this, and thank you. We're at the decision-making process. The planner has made a recommendation. Is there, who's the wish of council on this? Yes.
Thank you. I'm just a little confused on where the actual building is going to go compared to what we have here. And I'm just wondering, and we're getting some conflicting information, I'm just wondering if we can defer on that.
I think I was wondering if we could defer for more information myself. I think that I'm going to have some guidance from Amanda on this. If that is the case, Amanda, it is somewhat unprecedented, but what would the providing the information that we have got, I presume is accurate. I have no reason to believe it's not. And the conversations that ensued, but the only thing I'm straight about is that the people that are in opposition against this building were given the opportunity to speak, and they are not. Okay? And so I'm going to have to take this letter of for lack of a better word, protest seriously. And I know that that road, I know the conditions of that road, I know the redundancy of that road to some degree, and it's not mine. That's the concern I've got. Yes, Mark, go ahead.
I don't really think a deferral will help in this case because the people have stated they would like to go ahead. So I think we have to make a decision based on what's in the report. And it says in the report, what the required setbacks are, what the requested setbacks are, and also, there's the letter from the neighbors, and it hasn't been rescinded. So I think we should vote on the recommendation. And really, if we refused it, it wouldn't really have to come back to council at all because it's a 25 or almost 25 acre property. There's lots of room on that property to build a horse barn without even requiring a minor variance.
Okay, will you make that a motion?
Okay.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councilor McCollum, discussion among council, yes.
Just have to point out that if they put it back on the cement pad, it would be a minor variance at that point.
Yes, it would still be a minor variance if they have to apply. Yes, you certainly may. Ma'am, thanks for coming to my rescue.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to council. Just a few procedural notes given the conversation happening at the council table. The applicant, so a deferral is, at council's discretion. However, typically deferrals are done when only new information is requested. So we would require some staff direction on exactly what new information council is specifically looking for. As Alana outlined, the details in her report about setbacks being requested and the setbacks where the barn is currently located are noted. It is 1 meter from the property line or 12.8 from the center of the road. Those are the appropriate setbacks. But the other, whether the neighbor's letter changes or not, the merits of the minor variance on its face with the meter distances remain the same. So I'll just note that for council. In terms of, what was the other part? Oh, amending, sorry, Deputy Mayor. The applicant would have the opportunity, should they wish, to amend their application to go back and say, we didn't want to put the barn in the exact location, we wanted to move it back, say, another 6 or 7 meters or 8 meters and use part of the existing pad. As per the Planning Act, that would require recirculation of all notices, and that includes the timelines for notices. So that would mean, I think it's either 14 or 20 days, 10 days, thank you, 10 days, for a public notice to go out, which would advise all the appropriate parties of the amended application. Then we would set another public hearing date like this at a regularly scheduled council meeting. And then they would also have an appeal period, which they also will have today if they were approved. So that's an option, or they could submit a completely different application for somewhere different, or to Councilor McGill's point, they could build on another portion of their property that wouldn't require a minor variance. So I hope that answered some options for
Yeah,
council.
clarifies, thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, Ned. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Ned.
So you're saying if you want to defer something, so I'd like to know if the barn's gonna bother Simpsons to make a decision.
I know the letter in front of you.
I know the place.
Yeah, there's been a written,
We're told that the building is in a different location than it's further back, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
but right now, are you suggesting we make our decision on conversation? We have to make our decision on the numbers and what is in front of us. We can't make a decision on a supposed conversation. That's the issue I've got.
Can I have some procedural notes?
Okay, go ahead. Thanks, Debbie.
I don't want to speak for the planning staff but I think the main thing is that nothing would change from the planner's point of view in recommendation of the Planning Act. So the information on the neighbor's comments wouldn't change, like the MPS setbacks or the planning opinion as per the Planning Act. So I think that's kind of what the new information aspect, what that actually means. The other stuff is separate from that.
Yes, go ahead, Martin. Last chance of the mic here.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just wondering if we can have a scenario that to compromise this whole situation, that we ask Joseph and Crystal if they're willing to change their minor variance to 5 meters. And if not, and then we also would ask the Simpsons if they would be all right with that. And this way we can resolve this tonight.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vink. So unfortunately, the application is a public process under the Planning Act, and while amendments are permitted, they need to be recirculated to provide the public notice that's required in the Planning Act. So even if a tentative agreement was reached today for an alternate setback of some measure, the Planning Act requires the notice to be posted and to be circulated to neighbors in advance of a public hearing and a decision. So unfortunately, I don't think procedurally that type of compromise would keep the result you're looking for. However, it could, allow for a future application amendment or submission that might be mutually acceptable.
That could come, that is not our responsibility as council, but I think sometimes it's good knowing what the decision is, and instead of going again. And then an alternative plan would be arranged, and easy to be considered. As Councilor McGill stated, there is grounds on the property that accommodate. It's unfortunate that there work proceeded before the applications went through. Just, I got a report. And quite honestly, I don't want to disparage the contractors, but they should have known. And that's, it is unfortunate, but on two levels, municipality was not notified and building services were not notified as well. And I think it's pretty well common knowledge that you can't pour concrete and build a building without going through the hoops. Yep, we have a mover and a second for this. It has been moved by McGill, seconded by McCollum. I'll allow two more questions. Question mark?
I just wondered, if we were to approve this, can it be appealed by the county?
OFA, would they be involved in this? I don't know.
I do think the county has appeal rights, but I don't know for sure, I'd have to look into it.
Okay. Second question, who's got it? Anybody? Okay. Chair will call it. All in favor of the recommendation, please raise your hand. Great, unanimously. Okay. Go back to the drawing board. And consult with staff. Don't be afraid. Staff are friendly. Give them a call. They can assist you. Okay? Ask and you'll get an answer.
That's the problem we did. We asked and we got a wrong answer
From our staff?
from the permitting department. That's the unfortunate part.
Okay. Council Chair will accept the motion to adjourn the committee. Councilor Myers, thank you. 7:21, committee adjourned. Second for that, please. Deputy Mayor Schultes, all in favor? Carried. Kendra, meeting adjourned 7:41. Yeah, 7:20. We currently have George. Thanks for your patience there, George. It's good to see you. You come to the mic. I know you're familiar with that chair. And you're going to brief us on the Lethbridge drain. Please go ahead as soon as you're ready. And you got a mic you want to have to fire up with? Or...
Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship. We're here tonight to present our report on the Lethbridge Road drain. This was a road petition submitted by the previous road superintendent here. It's been an ongoing project for a while. It's a somewhat unique site in that it is a very low-traveled road. And when we started this project, it was to replace a failing culvert that was starting to fail. Through some study of this and some conversations with the landlord, there's been reports of also flooding, very narrow roadway that's concerning the landlords for roadside safety, and also significant erosion downstream of the culvert. The culvert kind of outlets into a gully bank. It's a very small culvert with design, so it's very high velocities and causes a fair amount of erosion immediately downstream. So these concerns were all raised at a meeting here with landowners. They also talked a little bit about potentially slowing down some of these flows. So what we did is we've had about a half dozen meetings here trying to work with the landowner and the road authorities to try to look at different options here. We did propose some water and sediment control bases to try to slow down the water and a little bit of erosion works on the private properties, but they were not interested at this time on those works. They want to see, what improvements we get out of replacing the road culvert. So what we've come up with here is both a replacement of the road culvert, but we've also expanded the road culvert to be an appropriate size for the amount of water that contributes to it. This is a new drain, so we had to establish what water is tributary to this. And then we also have extended it and also added an angle to redirect that flow so that it's not banging into that bank on that gully. Unfortunately, there's a couple issues here with the road, but particularly,
from the road surface down to the end of the culvert is approximately 7 meters, so that's 24 feet, give or take. So this is a very deep gully on the downstream side, and the replacement of this culvert takes quite large equipment. I had talked with township staff that they had equipment in-house that would be capable of doing this, because this seemed like a good project on a, a very, very low occupancy road here to do with township, but unfortunately the equipment is not big enough, so it would have to be tendered to get the appropriate size equipment to deal with this. Access is also difficult to deal with the erosion on the downstream of the gully, because again, it's down about 20, 30 feet underneath the road. So there's quite a bit of access there. There's detailed plans here. Part of this would be also to address the road. So the road is quite narrow on that section, approximately 5 meters. To take it to TAC, which is the Traffic Association of Canada, they have standards for roads. And so their smallest road or their lowest volume road would be a single lane, one direction, so you yield to oncoming traffic. It's a 4-meter road, and then when you're next to a gully like this, you're supposed to have a 3-meter shoulder, so a 10-foot shoulder, so that things like large equipment or safety are respected here. So part of this is to, our proposal is to lower the road a bit so that we can lower the road a little bit so we can get a little bit of that slopes, the distance loss of slopes removed, and also widen on the downstream side so that we can get enough width to have, the minimum standard for the Traffic Association of Canada is here. This will require the township to pass a bylaw to post this road at 50 kilometers an hour or 40 kilometers an hour after this. It is a rural road, so it would be assumed to be posted 80. You guys will have to post this to make this, because we've made the slopes a little steeper, so it would need to be posted at 50, but it is a 1-lane road with yield to oncoming traffic. So it would be expected to have 2 sign posting, I guess, 1 to 50 kilometers and 1 to yield. But the cost to add another lane and make it up to a TAP standard of a 2-lane road, like one going each direction, would be significantly more. So we did not want to entertain that. And then on the downstream side, we've included a settling basin here. We have a culvert that falls many, many feet over it, so the losses get quite fast going through that culvert. So we've created a stilling basin and then some erosion protection downstream, so that, the concern that the existing culvert has caused significant erosion there, and future water going through that culvert will not cause further erosion to the gully beyond what would have naturally occurred had this road and culvert not existed. Beyond that, there's a little bit of road ditching and improvement there. And like I said, there is the intent to make sure we have 10 meters, which would be, very passable for larger equipment, to make sure that's safe for private landowners using that road for farming or things of that nature. The anticipated project cost here is $80,000. It's quite a bit, but it's due to the large nature of equipment needed. Hopefully, we would tender and get better results than that. However, I can't guarantee that, so I wanted to be safe and present a number that I think would be conservative. If we get a better cost, then that would be savings for the municipality. It is a culvert project, so it is assessed solely to municipalities to address, road issues, culvert, and also the erosion caused by the existing culvert. So if there's any questions, I would welcome them now. This is a petition by the municipality, so you guys can instruct me to do something different, or you guys can instruct to remove the petition. But based on the feedback and requests I got to date, this is the proposal we brought forth for your consideration.
Okay. George, thank you very much, George. We do have a process in our agenda that we will follow, but those opportunities will come up. Questions from any affected property owners who are present? Just raise your hand if you'd like to come to the mic. Friendly atmosphere here. Okay. Don't see anyone? Okay. All right. And, request for those present to add or remove their names from the petition. Don't see any of that. Comment or questions from members of council? George, if I can head it off. You mentioned very strongly that that road would have to be designated a 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limit. 2 signs would be required. What about the timing of the erection of those signs? Like, will they go up when after the work is done, or before the work is done? What is the timeline for our department to put these up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, those could be erected at any time. Currently, the road is only about 4 meters wide, which does not meet the minimum requirements for a two-way traffic. So I would recommend that it probably would be in public interest to erect those as soon as
Sooner rather
possible.
than later, yeah. I assume that. Okay, thank you. And it had to be asked. Okay, sorry, council, any other questions? Yeah, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Mayor, will there be guardrails on this?
No, through you, Your Worship. The roadside safety manual provides a couple options for dealing with roadside safety issues. The one would be to erect a guardrail when you have a large gully like that. The other would be to provide an adequate safety slope, so a flat spot adjacent to the road. In this situation, we provided a 3-meter platform adjacent to the edge of the road, so that would be a grass boulevard adjacent that, if you ever were to add a tire or something similar go on top of it without going down into the gully. So you could narrow the platform and instead of trying to widen the platform and lower the road, you could try to erect guardrail to try to protect them from safety. But the issue with that is then you get impassable for large farm equipment. So the intent here was to try to make sure that we weren't impeding farm passage or equipment because that was the primary use of this road at this time.
Should there be any other additional signage beside this?
There should be your typical hazard signs for culvert and a slope there, but nothing beyond that because it would fall in line with the minimum standard for a low volume road for the roadside safety manual at that time.
Thank you. Okay, no yield to oncoming traffic, or is it just a courtesy yield?
I would have to double check on what the exact standards are. They would be outlined in one of the TAC manuals, but there should be signage as you enter that road that is yield to oncoming traffic and one-way traffic only.
Our admin can certainly chase that down, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks, Maura. I see you nodding your head there. I know it'll be looked at as well. Let's go for comments. Council, any further questions? I think we got them all. George, thank you very much for that. We're at the point where we do make a decision. The report has been presented to council. You accept the drainage engineer's report, and that you will confirm it with the first and second reading in bylaws. Okay. I think that's good. Councillor Myers, second for that, Councillor Mink. We've beat this to death. My questions, I think. All in favor? Carried. Thanks again, George.
Thanks, everyone.
Staff report. Amanda, could you walk us through the agreement with Quad County Services, workplace partner?
Certainly through you, Mayor, and to council. Earlier this year, the municipality did enter an informal partnership with Quad County Support Services to provide a work placement opportunity for an individual who works with their organization. And the experience was positive for both us and the individual. It was provided on a no-cost basis in that informal partnership. Given that success, this report recommends formalizing a relationship through an agreement with Quad County so that we can continue to offer similar placements as needs and fits arise within municipal operations. While the partnership is at no cost to the municipality, the Quad County program provides support insurance when participants are covered through our volunteer WSIB coverage. And it's just, I think, a great example of community partnership and inclusion, reinforcing the municipality's commitment to social responsibility and also benefiting municipal operations. And I just want to reiterate that entering this agreement with them would really just serve to expedite future partnerships should an individual and a match arise. We just wouldn't have to go through this process. And at this time, there's no financial impact to the agreement as we're contemplating volunteer placements only. However, consideration through our annual budget process for potential paid employment for this partnership may come in the future as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Quacknally is an important organization within Southwest Middlesex. We know the benefits they give their clients, and in turn the benefits they provide to our municipality. At every event that is being held in Southwest Middlesex, they're great civic contributors. Questions from council? The aspect of there may come a time that you will have to pay them, I think, is a reality. I think, is that true? Is that what you're alluding to in that? Is there has been examples, and Martin is very familiar with them, of Morton Valley Restaurant, for instance, and things like that, where that subject came up and didn't necessarily end with a positive result. If you could comment on that.
Absolutely, thank you, Mayor, through you. My conversation with their executive director is, ultimately Quad County's goal is to, where appropriate, to find paid employment, experience and opportunities for the people they support. That is ultimately their goal. And in our informal partnership this year, I told them that I did not have budget, it was not approved by council to offer paid employment, but that if they had someone who was interested in a volunteer role, we'd be happy to support in that way this year. And I also told them that in future, pending approval of this agreement from council, that we would continue to be interested in placement for volunteers. But that while I understood their goal in the long term was paid employment, I would bring that up through council through future budgeting processes, but it would be dependent on council approvals, and of course only utilized if there was an individual with not everyone, I can't imagine why, but not everybody is necessarily might want a placement with the municipality. I think it's the best place.
So the province isn't involved in this?
No, this is directly through us with Quad County.
Okay, no problem. Continuing on, recommendations for you. If there's any other questions, yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I think it's a win-win for both of us, so I would approve the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Councilor Emery, last call for questions. All in favor? Carry. 8-2, clerk. Okay there. Finance. Look forward, Denise, to that report that you come. And I'm sure it'll be well prepared. Looking forward to that. Public Works, new drain position, Mansard Branch of the Hyndman Drain. Morrell, would you like to introduce this to council, please?
Yes, through Mayor to Council, a petition was filed under Section 4 of the Drainage Act to create a new branch in the Hyndman Drain. This private branch has existed for a long time, likely since before 1928, but it's never formally been part of the drain system. By petitioning, landowners want the branch to be formally recognized for future improvements and be managed fairly and cost shared properly. There are no costs in this project right now. If the project moves ahead, an engineer will prepare a report to determine design details and how costs are divided, and can answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, council. Again, the cost will be a portion of the property owners on the drain. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wondering, looking on this drawing, in red, that's going to be the new drain.
Through the mayor, Councilor Mayor, that's correct. Currently, that's the private drain that they want to incorporate into this drain.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, the recommendations before you, is there a mover and a second for this? Moved by McGill, second for that, please. Emery? All in favor? Carried. Morrell, thank you very much for that. 8-5, community service and facilities, there's none. Fire, I have not advised of any. Building, none. Planning, I think our work is done there. I've not been advised of any notice of the motion. Here. Correspondence and petitions, none. Unfinished business, none. New business, we did not move any of the consent items. County Council conference updates, there are none. Council, any announcements? Or awards or anything like that? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Just like to comment that the gazebo in Middlesex is really starting to take shape and it looks wonderful.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm just trying to come down an email here. There is a very good request center are running a grief counseling session, and they have one of Canada's top doctors coming to discuss this, where there's been a situation in the family where a son or a daughter had died unexpectedly, and parents are having a hard time. We register with the Quest Center, and I'm not going to take the time to give you the name of that doctor, but she is internationally known. And I think I know there are situations in Southwest Middlesex where there is a heavy burden of grief, and that opportunity can present itself to you with a simple call to the Quest Center. So for our listening audience or any of your friends and family, that is available. Okay, closed session. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
So a bit better procedure, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Just an announcement from the staff side. I know council's aware of it for the public viewing. The municipalities annual council grants are currently available right now, meaning we are accepting applications for annual grants for the 2026 year from community groups and nonprofit organizations. The information is available on our website. And if you have any questions about that process, feel free to contact the municipal office. Further to that, in preparation for our 2026 budget, we also have a public survey open right now, which is open for a few more weeks. Sorry, the deadline is escaping me, but it is available on our website, and we encourage everyone to participate. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We will now go into closed session pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act. The regular meeting of Council of Southwest Middlesex will be temporarily adjourned at 7:42. Commit holding a meeting in closed session for the purposes of draft minutes of October 1st, a trade secret or scientific, technical, or commercial information, reasonable contractual or other negotiations, or a person, group of persons, or an organization. And closed item, Section 239, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation. Is there a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Lake, Councillor Hagan, all in favor? Carried.